Welcome to SpacePod. We have got to episode 11. I didn't think we'd get this far.
Hello, Paul. No, nor me. It's gone very quick, but also been very enjoyable.
But we've had some great feedback, so we're keeping going at it. People like it, so we'll keep going. And today, it's great to have with us an old colleague at IBM, but now Executive Commercial Director at WIA Technologies in Ireland, Dr. Claire Penny. Welcome, Claire.
Hi, Paul. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Claire, you and I and Paul were our last physical business meeting that we had before lockdown in Dublin in early March. Can you believe that?
I cannot believe that at all. It seems like yesterday, but it also seems like a lifetime ago. It's absolutely unbelievable.
We do need to say that we don't talk about anything official on SpacePod. It's just literally our points of view. So it's just what we think and feel versus any corporate strategy. So I think Claire is okay with that. To kick off, Claire, it'd be great to hear about your new role outside of IBM. I'm sure we'll get to talk about that as well. And really, what are you up to at WIA?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So what I'm doing at WIA is I am the commercial director sitting on the board, and I work very, very closely with the CEO of the company and the COO. And we set the strategy and we set the product direction. And it's just absolutely fantastic, actually, to be sitting, with really clever people and almost running a company. I mean, obviously the CEO runs the company, but being extremely involved in that. And what WIA is a kind of software electronics company. And we focus in on the Internet of Things and the Internet of Things as it pertains to buildings. So for me, it's almost like a dream come true, really, to be, that far in the weeds and to be involved in the day-to-day operations and the day-to-day running of a company, all related to a topic that I'm particularly passionate about.
This time you had at IBM, and you mentioned Internet of Things, you've probably seen quite a lot that surprised you about how people are using technology to manage space.
People have just gone down the path of least resistance, down the easiest route, which has been, okay, here's a really nice product that's going to help me manage my desk occupancy. And they may put in some hardware and then pull the data, and hey, you've got this really lovely solution that enables you to see how your desks are being utilized, whether they're free desks. What troubles me slightly with that approach is that then you end up with yet another disparate solution. And unless it's architected in such a way that it can speak to other solutions, you're going to have to then go out to the market and look further for another solution that's maybe for meeting room bookings. And then you're going to have to look for another solution that is maybe going to tell you around utilization and full occupancy of the space, because you're not having the metrics at the floor level or at the building level. So that's kind of what I'm seeing, Paul, is that people are still tending to go down that single point of view solution rather than looking at the big broader picture and saying, okay, where do I want to take this? My space is yes, it's about desks and it's about getting people in and comfortable and working well and happy. But there are other elements about your space you need to consider, like, am I complying with fire safety regulations? Do I have enough fresh air being pumped into the space? What is the air quality of the space? What's the lighting looks of the space? So it's not just about the physical, sitting down at a desk. But at the moment, I think people are going, I've got a use case, I've got a problem, let's go and fix that problem.
Claire, I know in your new role, you're talking to a lot of startups working in this area of sort of smart buildings and places. And just wondered if you had any stories you can share with us.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the startup world, it's like night and day. It's like you're to bed one night, an IBM employee, and everything's cozy, and you wake up and then you're in a startup and it's like, oh, okay, so I really am on my own here. The startup community is a fantastic community, and people are, very willing to share and help each other. And also, if you have a really good idea, there is money out there and people will invest in the space. And what we're seeing in the startup world is that there is quite a lot of investment coming from governments and from private investment companies around property tech, around smart buildings. And so, our experience is that people do like startups. Some companies are happy to work with startups. We would like if a few more companies would work with startups, because the challenge is to get your product out into the field and being tested and used by a live client. I mean, that's the best feedback you can ever get for your product. So we have been working with a couple of companies who've taken the plunge and said, yeah, okay, let's do this. And for us, that's really, really exciting, because then we get to test, as I said, the product with a company who's going to be critical. Because to be honest, like all feedback is fantastic, but the feedback on which you can build and grow and make yourself better. So some perceive it as critical feedback. I see it as fantastic feedback. That's what you really want. You know, if it did this, it would be great. It doesn't work here, that kind of stuff. So there's a huge amount of startups in the smart building space. Property tech is pretty well invested, and if you look at the analysts' feedback, it doesn't look like investment in this space is going to go away anytime soon.
It's interesting, Claire. I mean, I know certainly in the UK there's big announcements about funding of new homes and new schools and repairs and refurbishment of education, and so that's all to stimulate the economy, as we know, because construction is the kind of job one to stimulate an economy, and I think that will eventually over many years, no doubt, ripple through to more exciting uses of smart tech.
We're not doing, I don't believe, in our industry is really saying why we should do this. A lot of people are fixated on the tech. Do you know what I mean? Oh, look at my smart building, it's got all this tech in it. But really, do employees really care about that? I know the landlords don't really care about that. So it's the operators that are looking at like, oh, look at my smart building. But unless you have that real understanding of why am I doing this and what is it driving? And I know the three of us could go on for about 4 days on the value of having having a smart building, right from employee wellness, employee satisfaction, right down to running an efficient building. But I don't think as an industry, as a kind of property tech industry, we've been able to articulate that to the buyers, to the customers, to say, look, this is really why you should do this. Not because it's a gimmick or because it's blingy or because everybody else is doing it, but for you and your business, this is the really clever thing to do, and this is why it's clever. And I think until we can really show that we're going to struggle, I think, still. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of investment because the investment community see this, they understand this. And I think the ripple effect is coming. It might be in a few years' time. But I think to give us a fast start, we need to really articulate those use cases and then demonstrate them. And I think the demonstration side as well, maybe where it's oversold and underdelivered.
I love that. And you've prompted me to remind you that, not that you probably do, because I think you've just demonstrated it, that you're someone who likes to shake the apple cart, which is your word, your phrase, not mine. And actually, I was just thinking as you're talking about, veneer of smartness that people put on their property as an attraction to people to come to my building and rent my building, use my building because it's smart. I think you're saying that maybe that's not strong enough anymore, and the technology alone is never going to make that work in future, and it's got to be much more of a human draw. And once we've got that, then the tech can follow next. Is that sort of how you see it?
Yeah, and I think, Paul, the two can go in parallel. I think there's a lot of work still to be done in terms of how we actually execute the technology in a building. So I've been getting questions from developers and construction companies like, how do we future-proof the building as far as technology is concerned? And it's a little bit like, boom, like, I don't know, it's like, yeah, you can fill the building full of wire, or you can go down, or you can make it so that you can use cellular connectivity and there's no blockers because of the materials you use. There's no one real fix for this kind of question around how do I future-proof my building. I think it's got to be all part of the design process. Design, why is this building being built in the first place, and how can we make it easy to operate and easy to be in and everything. And then I think the technology will fall into that. And I think there needs to be some push towards, okay, you've got this protocol and this language and that network and this and that. It's all very, very confusing at the minute. I think, there are people pulling together papers and having good conversations around, data standardization. How do we, get data from A to B so that we can actually use it, so that we can share it and ensure that it communicates well, so we can get as much out of the data as we possibly can. So I think the two are in parallel. I think once the kind of landlords. So we are talking to landlords at the moment, but they're only really interested in the common areas. Do you know what I mean? And then they're only interested in spending capex. Do you know what I mean? So we can get the technologies in there, and then the operators come in and they've got a different kind of, well, I only want to spend OPEX. And so the commercial models of how, people are selling technology into these spaces needs to be reviewed as well. But I do go back to the point of, I do think we still got some way to go in terms of, and I'm going to steal a kind of IBMism here, to democratize the data that's generated from the building. Because at the minute, to my very first point, it's kind of like siloed everywhere. Do you know what I mean? It's in these siloed proprietary systems almost, and it's very difficult to unlock that. And this is what we're trying to do, and WIA, actually, shameless plug there, is to unlock this data so that anybody can use it from any device. So it doesn't matter what device you have, you can use it. And obviously we're on a journey, we're a startup, but this is our vision, to do this, to be that kind of enabler, to enable people to use the data that's available to them. Because, I mean, oftentimes people want to put in new sensors and things like that without looking first at what they have already. And maybe what they have already is enough to get them to that first kind of use case, that first business case. And then when they want to go further, then they can invest in new hardware and technologies to take them to the next use case.
The car manufacturing industry have really got a digital twin, a tightly coupled object car, and therefore data is integral to the product, and the product is what they sell, and I pay for that and I get the experience and I'm all good. Buildings are so loosely coupled with so many moving parts, can't do it the same way.
Yeah, the questions I had was around the privacy of the personal data, and of course it's an important matter, but I wondered if you had any thoughts on how the shift to making the human safer inside the building will make security more of a corporate risk, or is it a positive thing?
Yeah, so I'm quite, I think, hopefully clear on this. So contact tracing devices, for me, in a building context, is not really very useful. Because what will happen, in my opinion, is if somebody, unfortunately gets COVID-19, is confirmed having COVID-19, the building will just be shut down, right? And everybody who was in the building, because you will know who was in the building because they're the people you employ, will be told to go and get tested. And so, for me, that's like contact tracing and handing over your personal information the way I see and interpret contact tracing, I think personally think is unnecessary for buildings. And so what you can then do to ensure people's safety is using the technologies that exist today, is you can count people in and out the building. We understand the square footage. Everybody knows the square footage of their building. They know the common areas. They know every space is known. And I know Triega has this data within it. So you can very easily calculate what is 2 meters physical distancing, what square meterage is required, and it's like 16 square meters per person. So then you just count the people in up to 16 square meters, for the square footage, giving them that 16 square meters. And you can very clearly say that I, as an employer, am not putting any more people in this building than is physically possible for people to physical distance. So that's easy. You can do that, and you can stop people, and you can have it connected to your CASI control system, badge control system, and you can just stop people from coming into the building. The next level is, where are people within the building? So, again, using sensoring technology, people counting, then it could be time of flight sensors, it could be even less accurate, but it could be PIR sensors, or you could have the 3D people counting sensors. Throughout the building, at the high risk areas, you can count the number of people who are there. And all of that is done without going anywhere near anybody's personal data. You can even do dwell time. So there's some sensor technology out there that allows you to have an array of sensors, and you can see an area and understand how long an object, i.e. a person, has stood still in that area. And then you can, the area, and then you can either do a physical intervention, i.e. a barrier, to stop people from doing that, or you can communicate. So again, I think I don't believe we need to tap into people's personal data in order to make people safe in the workplace when they return to the workplace post COVID-19. And I think that, you know, and that message, to be honest, we're giving that message from WIA, and that's going down really well with people. They like it, you know. And if we can offer a sensor that's accurate, you know, without any camera technology at all, that's even better. You know, it's even more reassuring for the clients that, okay, we don't know who the people are, but we just know that there are people or objects as they are in that space.
Thank you, Claire. It's a really interesting perspective, because and I think the more data aware people, you know, are, and we all are at the moment, then it's just becoming I think something that's at the forefront of our mind, probably slightly dampened with the whole you know, COVID concerns around that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I mean, Paul Russell and I have chatted about this a little bit. I'd be more concerned about you know, people's data privacy and people's personal privacy with listening devices in the home. Now we're all working from home. that would be
well, like your Alexas
that
and so
would be
on.
my concern massively, because, you know, people say, well, if I'm not doing anything wrong, it doesn't matter. But I don't buy into that. Do you know what I mean? If you're discussing personal matters, you know, about pensions, about life insurance and stuff like that, you don't want people listening to that conversation. And likewise, as an employer, if people are discussing, you know, important things about work, you don't want somebody listening to that either. So
there was a while back, there was this
opinion.
phrase shadow IT, where, you know, people would not use the corporate systems, and they would use their own, you know, whether it was their own laptop or their own bit of software, and it was all a little bit sort of, yeah, we know it goes on, and, you know, we shouldn't do it. I think now what's happened is the shadow IT is huge, because people have had like 12 weeks at home. And I think the shadow is creating data privacy issues. And you make a great point there about the home. Very different circumstances you're in between this big kind of corporate IBM machine and WIA, where it's very much in startup mindset. And you mentioned a couple of times it's, you know, very much, you know, different way of working. But I just wondered, are there any things that you could take from your IBM job that, how would you describe the switch?
Yeah. So when I went through the interview process for this job, you know, it was always, I was reminded at every stage that this is not IBM. You know, there's not a team of people here to help. But I felt that our team in IBM, we were quite self-sufficient anyway, and we did rely on each other. But I felt we were like a little startup, although we weren't. You know, for everybody listening, not a startup, but that kind of mentality where we were trying to do things quickly and we relied on each other. So I felt confident during the interview process that no, I you know, this is fine, I'm used to this. But you know, nobody can prepare you for the actual reality of the situation. But I have to say that it's really, really enjoyable. Like, startup world it's fast paced, you know, everybody says that, and it's not a lie. It's seat of your pants stuff a lot of the time. But having a career in IBM before going into WIA, it has been so valuable. Oh my gosh, it's been unbelievable, because even if you kind of think to yourself, oh, I've had no formal training in that, you know, you've been in the meetings, and the amount of information and understanding that you absorb just by being in a company like IBM is, like, money cannot buy that. Seriously, it's just so amazing. It's kind of like you know, something will be said now in the startup, and you go, oh, hang on a minute, I have an example of that. Do you know what I mean? That can help us. And so you can very quickly lean on your resources and your network and go, yeah, actually, you know, this is how, you know, we used to do it, or whatever. Does this help? And it's phenomenal. Like, the learnings that you bring and the experience that you bring from a company like IBM, you know, a great company like IBM, into a startup is amazing. And to be honest, I would recommend everybody do it at least once in your life, because it really does make you stand up. It makes you grow a pair, as they say in a startup. It makes you, you know, not look for somebody else to make the decision. You have to be part of the decision process, and you have to suck it up when it goes wrong, and you have to celebrate when it goes right. Do you know what I mean? But it's quick. You can quickly get back on your bike and go again if it does go wrong. You know, never be afraid to pick up the phone. Your network is there, and people are willing to talk to you. You know, I mean, you know, a lot of times you're learning things for the very first time. I'm learning so much, you know, it's unbelievable, like, about stuff I never thought I'd be learning about investments and things like this, about how you go and get money, you know, how you talk to clients for the very, very first time. Because now I don't have that IBM badge on my lapel that opens the doors for me. You know, I have to work hard to get the doors open now, but at least you do have some, you know, you have your network and people to help you to get through the doors eventually. But then you have to deliver. And it's down to us to deliver, you know, small team, small startup. There's no looking over your shoulder that, oh, well, that's your job to deliver it. No, we all have to roll up our sleeves and deliver as well. So the similarities are, it's a business, you know, I'm in a similar type of, you know, obviously a lot more involved, but the kind of business development, getting the message out there, you know, ensuring people understand what our message is, ensuring that we get good feedback, you know, so we're not inward facing, that we are external facing as well. We understand what people want. And all of that really, you know, I was doing an IBM, so similar from that perspective. And then, of course, the differences are, you know, the buck stops, you know, I'm on the board. So, you know, the buck stops of me and my fellow board members. We have to make sure we're running the company properly. And again, we have to constantly make sure that our products are going in the right direction and it's actually what clients want. There's no comfort of other products to help us along the way. We have to make sure that this is right.
It is crystal ball time, Claire. So what we'd like to ask you really is, you know, what would you see as a major breakthrough or major breakthroughs, you know, over the next 5 years that will change how we view space? You know, and we're thinking, you know, AI, big data.
Yeah, so do you know what? I going back to something you said, Paul Russell, sorry, around the digital twin, right? I think that if we can get that right, that will be the big changer for me. And then all the other stuff, you know, then we will have oodles of big data and we'll be able to do AI till it's coming out of our ears. And 5G, you know, remains to be proven, to be honest, at the moment. But I understand where 5G is going, just to caveat that, you know, I understand the need for faster, quicker connectivity, etc., that will enable these devices to be spoken to and pulled into, you know, a cloud to get this big data. But I think if we can get back to fundamentals and really understand, like, the building at its heart and core, how it was built, why it was built, how it was designed, all that kind of building infrastructure, all the building services, and then start to monitor those and have this digital twin updated as they do in the car industry, you know, real feeds back, you know, how is it, can we tweak it, can we change the, you know, now I've got 200 people in the building and not 10, or the floor, can I use AI to either predict that, or can I automatically go in and change the airflows, just tweaking the whole thing the whole time. But I can't get out of my head that we need this base metadata, this digital twin, to enable us to be successful to do that. And at the minute, it's too disparate, and it's not converged in one place. And I don't believe the technologies have even maybe been invented yet that are going to help us to do that. We're currently using really good, tried and tested technologies that were used for just one element of the digital twin. You know, if you think about the 3D drawings, you know, then you move and you've got your FM solutions, and then you move again and you've got your IoT solutions, all in these little silos. Then you move again and you've got your building management system, you know, right back to the architect's plans. It's all sitting separately. And I don't believe it's one company's going to come out and magically fix it all. But I think something has to be there, like your universal remote control, that will help all of these things come together. Do you know what I mean?
No, totally. And digital twin. And, you know, again, you know, we make that point, and we're doing a lot around that, about exchanging data and keeping the fidelity of the data and the context valid. A building, we struggle like mad, even a brand new building. I mean, and I'm thinking again, all the buildings that are empty right now in London and God knows where else, you know, this is the time to look at those buildings to say, what do I know about this building when there's no human beings in it? Because, you know, when lockdown's over and they fill up with thousands of people, then, you know, what have I learned in the last 12 weeks that could have really helped me? And again, industries like, you know, people, traffic planners are looking at their cities saying, look, we've had no people. What does that show us about traffic flow? other things. And I don't know, I've got no evidence, but I do wonder whether people have been looking at their buildings in the last few weeks to see if they've learned something.
I hope so, because kind of pre-lockdown, I heard, somebody shared with us a story about a building that, they really did want to make it smart and they wanted to make it a showcase. But then, just the way services and technology is procured, they went through their kind of main supplier, their contractor, who's terrified, doesn't know anything about this stuff. And so they added extra risk into the cost, and it then became really, really expensive, to the tune of maybe $1 million or $2 million more to deliver something that little old wire could pop up and do do for next to nothing, but it's that kind of fear factor of this as well, the fear of getting it wrong. And we need to get it wrong before we can get it right anyway. I mean, everybody knows that. I mean, that's completely cliched at this point, but it's that fear, and it's that engagement of the wrong people. Builders and construction companies, they know how to build buildings. They don't know about IoT. They don't know about technology. Do you know what I mean? And then it's kind of oh gosh, now where do I go? And I'm going to have to build this myself, and I'm going to have to get, some of the giants involved. And it'd
be great to get Claire back on SpacePod in 2025 to see if her thoughts of digital twin were correct.
I hope so, guys, because I just...
Claire, thanks for that last comment. We are also very interested in digital twin, and in fact, a colleague that we all know, Lisa Seacat DeLuca, I'm sure will be very keen to explore that further.
Anyway, listen, we've got to wind up now, because this is probably the longest one we've done, but that's brilliant because the content's amazing. So Claire, thank you so much. Paul, as always, SpacePod buddy, thank you very much. Anyway, listen, we've got to wind up now, because this is probably the longest one we've done, but that's brilliant because the content's amazing. So Claire, thank you so much. Paul, as always, SpacePod buddy, thank you very much. So you've been listening to SpacePod. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please tell some other people, and have a good day and keep safe.